Welcome to the first in our series of LIC podcasts. I'm here with Pasture to Profit consultant Piers Badnell, and we're going to be talking grass, looking at ways we can maximise yields by good management and improve returns by reducing costs during this difficult time. Now, most people have come to the end of their first round and just started their second round. Piers, can you give us an idea of where that's left them?
Yes, most people have come to the end of that first round, but as the autumn, winter and spring has been really rather awkward, to say the least, especially with the cold weather in the early part of the first round. What that's meant, and cold, wet weather, people couldn't get out quite so early. So therefore, the first round has really rather been condensed a little bit, or is shorter than it has been normally. And so therefore, fundamentally, that's slowed down the number of days the grass has had to regrow to come back into that second round. Also, adding to that, we've had some really quite cold northerly winds that actually dried the land really well, but also brought lower temperatures. And so what we've seen off the back of that is some rather flat low end of the wedges and some potentially low second round entry covers. Generally, residuals in the latter part of the first round, since it started drying up, have been really good because grass has been really dry, the weather's conditions have been really dry, and that's enabled cows to allocate well and get cows to get some really good, quite good residuals. Some of the earlier residuals were a bit suspect when it was really wet and people were just trying to get some grass into them. But latterly, the end residuals have been good. And in terms of quality, grass quality has been fantastic. We're looking at MEs of 12 plus. There's two organisations that measure and analyse grass in the spring. That's AHDB's Forage for Knowledge and the Grass Check GB, and both are coming in at high qualities, 12 plus ME. Dry matters of up to 25% in the low 20s, where you'd normally expect that to be mid to top teens, so that's quite a considerable bit there. And crude proteins 20% plus. So you'd expect crude proteins 20 to 30%. So some really good quality in this last round. It's a bit of clearing up to do in some of the first round where it was wet and really quite tricky conditions. But since then, we've started it well. What I'd suggest is that we've started well. The challenge now is to carry on and keep going.
So we know balance day is almost upon most people. What are going to be the biggest challenges and the priorities that they've got to make now?
One of the first things when you come to the end of the first round and just about going to start the second round, and around balance day, I think the first thing is to state what balance day. Balance day is where the growth rate actually matches the demand per hectare. So how much the cows are going to eat, and then therefore you're now matching that in terms of growth. So coming to that end of the first round and going into the second, I think it's usually quite a good idea, if possible, to blend the two. So that might mean for the end, the last few paddocks of the first round, grazing at night, and the first couple of paddocks of the second round grazing during the day, or vice versa, just to blend, because we fundamentally got grass and it's good quality, but one has grown over the winter slowly, and one is rapid regrowth there. So it just takes a few days to balance through and help the rumen take over. At balance day, we should be around 1900 kilos of dry matter per hectare on the average cover. And we've seen some of those a bit lighter than that, and we've also seen a few heavier than that. Certainly, I've seen where it's been below is where people have been low on silage stocks and actually have gone round their first round and stuck to a percentage, and so therefore have come round and really come into the slower regrowth on the cooler weather, actually knocking that down and just not extending that round a bit and taking account of of actually how the grass grew more slowly in that end of that round. However, I've also seen some average covers up around 2,000, 2,350, those sorts of areas. There's a challenge there because we've now just going past balance day. So fundamentally, we're going past the point where grass growth rate is accelerating away from demand, and so therefore, if you don't get on top of those average covers, if you're slightly higher on the sort of 2,350, 2,3 somewhere like that, then actually grass could grow away from you. So there's some real quick decisions to be made. Now we've got longer day length, we've got warmer days, and we've got warmer nights, and so grass growth rate is sort of accelerating away, and it's pretty much exponential this time of year. So my point there is just don't get caught behind. If you've got slightly higher average covers, be careful, because if we have too higher average cover, we will end up with too higher entry covers. We're looking for 2,800 to 3,000 entry cover. Much beyond that, then we'll get shading of the sward base, and also it will be slower regrowth. And when we get the shading in the sward and in the base of the sward, it tends to increase the stalk proportion in the plant. So just beware of that. I think lastly, now we're beyond balance day, or at the point of balance day. Other forms of supplements really ought to start coming out of the ration. We've gone through the quality of the grazing at the moment, and you will be hard pushed to feed any form of supplement that will be as good as grass as that spring grass at 12 ME plus. So for autumn calvers, I think from now they'll be on top teens to low to possibly mid-20s in terms of litres. And actually, if you can get 16 plus kilos of grass into a cow of real quality on that sort of level of production, she should be able to do most of that off the back of grass. And so therefore, any form of concentrate coming in there should be just the minimum amount to get her into the parlour to help with cow flow if that's necessary. Spring calvers will be coming up to service and breeding in early May. What we really need to do there is be aware of what level we're at concentrate now. We want to enter or go towards breeding 2 weeks out with a fairly without any jumps or changes in the ration. So therefore, we really need to set our concentrate levels before we get to breeding. So 2 weeks out. So if breeding is 2 to 3 weeks plus away, it might now be the point just to start testing that level of concentrate, bringing that down in a little bit. And I'm not talking about when I'm talking about bringing concentrate down in big jumps. Certainly for springs, I'd do half a kilo, leave it 2 or 3 days, do another half a kilo, etc. Perhaps the autumns could be a little bit more aggressive, a kilo and leave it for a few days and then bring that down. What we want is nice, slow, steady changes. And the reason I'm talking about bringing spring calvers concentrate down is if you're at 4 or 5 now and you don't start reducing it now, then actually if you get to the point of breeding and you're still on 4 or 5, you're probably locked in at that level because you won't want to change things too much at the point of breeding or in early breeding. And so therefore you're potentially locked in at that higher level of concentrate for another 2 to 3 months, which adds up. That could put 200 kilos, 250 kilos on concentrate usage for the season. And it's about utilising the grass, taking the cost out and driving profit.
Right, good advice, Piers. Post-balance day, some average covers are high and some are low. Where should we be, ideally?
Well, at balance day, we're looking 1,900 and then coming into sort of an average cover for the season going forward until we start raising covers later. But I mean, that's not until August. We're looking at about 212, 250, somewhere in those sorts of regions. So those with high average covers need to get that under control for the very reasons I've explained earlier. And for those that are slightly under that, what we need to do is start driving those covers up to that level. The condensed round in that first round didn't help things, so some of those people with flat wedges are coming into low covers in the early second round. So really that's about pulling that rotation length out to enable grass to grow back up, and that might mean a short bit of supplementation in that time, but as soon as we get to average the correct average cover in those positions where we're just slightly below, that the supplement will need to come out, because growth rates are accelerating. Spring calving herd will probably be on a demand of about 40 to 50. It doesn't take much once you get to a growth of 70 for actually things to get out of control. And also the key thing now is don't forget those residuals. They drive future quality and quantity, and to just take account of the higher dry matters. While we've got this dry weather, the dry matters in that grass can be in the low 20s, so that's a good percentage more than a plate meter would suggest was out there. So if you're having trouble in these dry conditions with residuals, it's probably about allocation. Your allocation probably needs to be slightly smaller.
Right, well, we've obviously had a very long wet autumn and winter, and then early spring, followed by rapid drying up for most. What are the effects and challenges of this situation we find ourselves in?
Well, firstly, some soils have been in those early rotation, the first rotation, were potentially, some damaged, some pot marked a bit, and they just need monitoring. Anything that had any of those first paddocks that had a bit of a beating really just need to be monitored, just to see whether that's had an effect on growth rate. Sometimes it does, and sometimes we get away with it. But just keep an eye on the growth rate, those paddocks compared to their sort of neighbours, the ones that they should be growing along with, as they would normally do. Are they falling behind in the rotation? Also, if you use Agronet or any other form of recording, just see where their paddock yield through the season goes. Are they keeping up with the others, or are they falling behind? Because if they are falling behind, something will need to be done. That could be slitting in the autumn, or it might even be some patching in with some seed later in this month, maybe early May. And the rapid, we were sitting at the end of the wet weather with some really tricky conditions. Now, that rapid dry we got with the cold and cool and drying winds really did help. I mean, some of those, but the trouble being with some of those lighter soils now, they've almost gone from boom to bust in sort of moisture. So we've not had rain for some of those on 3 weeks, and they're beginning to show signs of stress. So if that is the case, then it's majorly important just to slow that rotation to give the grass time to regrow. I mean, the key thing is this average cover. If we hit average cover too hard, it can take all the way through to the middle of the season to sort of recover. There's some research work, I think John Roach quoted once, about that for every 100 kilos on average cover, the difference in growth rate is about 7. So if you were having one paddock with a growth rate of 40 and it was at 1800 cover, and a paddock next door at 1900, the 1900 will give you an extra 7 kilos a day of growth. So it really is a sort of a compound effect. And also, just reiterating very low average covers, it can have a major effect on tonnage through the whole season. And of course, as I'll talk about a bit about later, the key thing to do in terms of grass systems is managing and balancing that growth against the demand. So if we have a low growth and we still stay with a high demand, we're going to end up having to put supplements in for a lot longer. The drying weather for those on really heavier lands has been a real bonus. I mean, that's 3-4 weeks ago, looking at some of those farms in those situations, it was a real headache how they were going to take control of the platform and make the most of the season. But the three weeks of drying weather really have had some major benefits on that. And I've been on a couple where I was there a month ago, and there would have been 10-15% that was grazable. I was talking to one the end of last week, but now they've still just they've only got 5% left of the platform to graze. So it was rapid, and it was quite strong drying weather, and it's had some quite big effects all round.
So we're always talking about residuals. Why are they so important?
Fundamentally, a good residual drives quality and quantity going forward, and the first round is imperative to hit those residuals. Second round, if you can nail some of the ones that were poorer, because fundamentally all that sets the sort of stubble height for the rest of the season. And what we're trying to do is get a big amount of leaf and a high leaf to stalk ratio. The leaf is where all the goodies are as such, and the stalk is there to hold it up. If we end up with a poor residual, what we'll end up with later in the season is a higher percentage of dead and dying material in the base of the sward, plus a lower leaf to stalk ratio. And also, if we don't graze thoroughly and evenly, what we'll end up with is grass plants that are left by the cow, which will basically just deteriorate round after round. And the logical conclusion of that is at the end of the season on poor sward, you will see some paddocks where 50% is completely inedible by the cows and they won't touch it. So it's about driving the quality there going forward. And poor residuals leading to poor quality mid-season. There's plenty of data out there. The poor residuals will end up in more fibrous type of grass, which means that actually the cow can eat less of it, and each bite she takes or each kilo she takes on board is of lower quality, and the impact on that can easily be half a kilo of milk solids off grazing between a good and a poor residual early on. The cumulative effects on that. So basically we're looking at half a kilo of milk solids off grass potentially lost if we don't get these residuals right.
Very interesting, Piers. Now, as a summary, what are the keys to success this grazing season?
Well, I'd say the keys to success in a grass-based system this season and any season. One is the correct stocking rate, and what I mean by that is the correct stocking rate for your farm, because that can vary from location to location. So what I mean by that is actually the demand you're getting from your cows in terms of how much grass they need, can you grow that? So it's matching how much grass you can grow to the cow's demand, and that will have an impact on stocking rate. So once we've done that, the next thing to get right is to have the correct average cover all season. By default, if you do that through the grazing season of 250 in that sort of region, we're midpoint between the entry cover of 3,000 down to 1,500. By default, then we will have grass plants growing at their maximum in terms of quantity and quality. So once we've got the correct average cover all season, which we can manipulate by round length and depending on what the growth rates are and taking out paddocks where we don't need them, the next thing is we need the cows to have the correct body condition score all season. So, but fundamentally that's linked in with stocking rate and the average cover. If your stocking rate is right and you keep the average cover, by default you'll grow as much as you can and it'll be of quality, and that will look after the cow. As long as you have the right type of genetics and the right type of cow, that will look after her. So her correct body condition score drives fertility and her production. And finally, it's zero tolerance to lameness. A lame cow is a thin cow that does not produce. So we need to get cows to walk to pasture. We basically want them to do the work. So we need to make sure we look after their feet by good track maintenance and also by good foot maintenance.
Well, thank you, Piers. Lots of useful information there. Remember, our Pasture to Profit consultants are available throughout lockdown, either on the phone or via a Zoom conference call at an hourly rate of £100. They're classed as essential workers, so can still come and walk your farm to give you up-to-date advice, or you can send them pictures or video. When visiting, social distancing will be maintained at all times. Contact Piers for Southern England on 07970 682 798, Sean Chubb for Wales and Central England on 07833 228 501, and Bess Jowsey for Northern England and Scotland on 0771 7732 324. Alternatively, please go to our website, which is licnz.com/uk.cfm, and go to the Contact Us page to send any of them an email. Thank you all for listening.